forces inside them are invisible and mysterious. The havoc they wreak is staggering. We tried to predict them. We tried to outsmart them. Then one hellish season shows how little we really know. 4 ferocious storms slammed through the Caribbean, killing thousands from Haiti to Florida. And scientists rush into the vortex to reveal the true face of hurricanes. August 2004. Hurricane Charlie streaks out of the Atlantic into the Gulf of Mexico. It's a moderate hurricane, a Category 2 on a 5-point scale. But Charlie has yet to show its true face. At the National Hurricane Center in Miami, Florida, they're trying to figure out where the storm is headed. Millions depend on them getting it right. They're predicting it will hit land at Tampa Bay in Florida. Thousands heed the warning and flee the area. But to the south, many feel sure the worst will pass them by. They board up to sit it out. It's Friday, the 13th of August, and Hurricane Charlie is about to go bad. It's the opening salvo in the most destructive hurricane season in U.S. history. And in the Caribbean, one of the most deadly. Florida alone is hit by 4 savage storms, each behaving in different ways. Charlie, fast-moving and unpredictable, that will test the limits of modern forecasting. Francis, a lumbering giant the size of France. Yet it picks out its victims with pinpoint precision, transforming their world forever. There's Ivan, the Terrible, turning the ocean into a bulldozer and an entire coastline into rubble. And finally, Jean, killing thousands in Haiti before dealing a last tragic blow to battle-weary Florida. But amid the wreckage, there's also opportunity. Each of these storms will give scientists a chance to explore the hidden secrets of hurricanes. One team will drive headlong into the fury to find answers to a terrifying puzzle. Another will race to avert disaster by confronting the raging seas that are a hurricane's most deadly weapon. Each will be stunned by what they see. At the National Hurricane Center, the forecast for Hurricane Charlie is going well, so far. For days, it has followed the path they've predicted. But Charlie is a deceiver. It intensifies suddenly to a raging Cat 4. With 145 miles per hour winds. Then, it makes a hard right turn. The storm sweeps ashore at Charlotte Harbor, 80 miles south of the expected landfall, and with unanticipated fury. It rips through the town of Punta Gorda. The wind dies briefly as the clear eye of the hurricane passes over the clock tower. The eye of the storm is calm, but it's surrounded by a hurricane's fiercest weather. The fastest winds spin around the eye, forming the eye wall. It's the most violent part of a hurricane and the least understood. In the temporary calm, people are deceived into thinking the storm is over.
Get out of the street!
run for cover as the trailing edge of the eye wall closes in. It turns huge pieces of debris into deadly missiles. The storm blows through in 3 terrible hours. In its wake, a swath of destruction and 30 people dead. Charlie has begun the season with a sobering reminder of how much is still to learn.
There was a tremendous outcry. Oh my gosh, there was forecast to hit Tampa and it hit Charlotte Harbor.
Max Mayfield is the Hurricane Center's director. In the 30 years he's worked here, forecasting has made dazzling progress, but it remains uncertain. Forecasters allow for the uncertainty by using a cone to represent the margin for error. But people often make the mistake of focusing on a precise track that cannot be accurately predicted.
The frustrating thing for me is that we've been teaching this for years and years and years. I want my tombstone engraved, don't focus on the skinny line.
If a hurricane's path remains elusive, its pattern of destruction is also a mystery. A mystery that meteorologist Josh Werman believes he can help solve. Werman runs the Center for Severe Weather Research in Boulder, Colorado. He's come to Florida to investigate the forces that cause this kind of destruction. Mobile home communities are among the worst hit. These lightly built structures are especially vulnerable to fierce winds. Yet in hurricane-prone Florida, more than 1 in every 10 homes is factory-built. Charlie has demolished them, row after row. But Josh is intrigued by something. They're not steamrolled evenly, as might be expected in a big storm. Side by side with the flattened structures, some are almost untouched.
Well, it is amazing, yeah. You see this completely demolished and things around it are just fine.
How a hurricane does this is a puzzle. It looks more like the work of a tornado. And that's what's got Josh Werman's attention. Tornadoes are his specialty.
Tornado is 1.6, 3.2 kilometers away from us by Saturday. Tornado is 2.4 kilometers south of the road.
He's been chasing killer winds for years across the Great Plains in a fleet of Doppler radar units. They can follow fast-moving storms wherever they go and get dangerously close to them.
There it is. There it is.
All right, we see it south of the road.
Hurricanes spawn tornadoes, and Josh wants to know how big a part they play in the destruction. Doppler radar can see right through the severest weather like an X-ray, measuring precise wind speeds and picking out the shape of the wind pattern.
1.5 kilometers away.
If a twister is present, the Dopplers can see it, even in the midst of a hurricane.
Here's our deployment site. Tornado's in there. Oh, it's still there. It's big. How's it looking, Josh?
Good, very good.
It's risky science, but when Josh gets 2 mobile Dopplers this close to a storm, he gets double the data. High-resolution images in fine detail of the forces hidden from the human eye. The selective pattern of destruction wrought by Hurricane Charlie looks like tornadoes were at work. They've been seen in the outer bands of hurricanes, but whether twisters form in the eye wall is an unanswered question. Josh Werman doesn't think so.
I think it's unlikely that tornadoes did this. Probably what did this were basically straight-line hurricane-force winds, but very intense.
From what he's seen in other hurricanes, Josh believes the eye wall conceals some other invisible force that his Doppler units can detect. If he can confirm his theory, lives and property might be saved.
What we need to look at is whether or not there are actually atmospheric factors, whether the wind speeds were different in different neighborhoods or different areas of the same neighborhood. Until we can answer that question, we won't really know how to make these neighborhoods safer.
With a big season in the forecast, Josh has brought 2 Doppler teams to Florida in hopes of testing his theory.
Generator on.
And it's the nature of human curiosity that we want to know what's going on someplace that we can't see. So we want to see inside hurricanes.
His plan is simple, but dangerous. To drive the Dopplers into the eye of the next big storm to reveal its true face. He won't have long to wait. In the cauldron of the Atlantic, another monster is already brewing. At the National Hurricane Center, the forecasters keep watch on unusually warm waters in the tropical oceans. Global warming may be to blame. No one knows for sure. Either way, the turbulent tropics are generating one ugly weather system after another. In recent decades, 8 named storms have been the average over an entire 6-month season. This year, there are 8 already in a single month. This one is Hurricane Francis, and it's huge, the size of Texas.
That's amazing.
With the memory of Charlie hanging over them, the big question now is, where is Francis heading? To figure it out, the forecasters compare computer predictions of the storm's likely track from a half a dozen state-of-the-art weather centers around the globe.
We look at a variety of different computer projections, and they don't always agree. Right now we have some models that take Francis to Bahamas, over South Florida, into the Gulf of Mexico. But there are also some models that take it into South Carolina.
Each computer model of the hurricane uses a different method to calculate what will happen to the storm and to the weather around it. It's the surrounding weather systems that will steer Francis to one place or another. As the big storm moves closer, the conflicting models agree. Florida is once again in the crosshairs. Josh Werman and his mobile Dopplers are on the move. But intercepting a hurricane is very different from chasing a tornado. To observe the fierce winds in the eye wall, Josh must guess where the eye wall will come ashore
Let's say it does this.
and set up the Dopplers in time. That could be anywhere along hundreds of miles of coastline. He'll have to scout dozens of potential deployment sites.
We have a very clear view.
Each site must have an unobstructed view, clear of flying debris when the hurricane hits.
But if those palm trees weren't there, it'd be perfect, right? That one palm tree is the only issue, right?
Josh wants to be as close to the ocean as possible, but the police have already closed off the beaches.
Hi. Hi, we're a scientific research team, and we're scouting out sites. We're researching the wind field of the...
You get a pass.
We do not have a pass.
As the day ends, storm clouds gather.
And the storm is right down there.
With nightfall comes the first rain. Time is running out for Josh to find a location before Francis arrives.
National Hurricane Center.
The phone lines are getting busy. Anxious callers want to know if they're in harm's way.
Francis will be threatening the eastern United States sometime over the weekend. There's still a degree of uncertainty, so for right now, it's a Category 4.
Hurricane Charlie was so unpredictable that many people failed to respond to the danger. This time, Max Mayfield intends to make sure the threat is clear. The TV cameras roll.
Good afternoon. This is the 5 p.m. update on Hurricane Francis. The size of Francis is very important. This is Hurricane Charlie just as it was making landfall, and this is Francis over here on the right.
Charlie was a tightly wound storm and very fast-moving. Hurricane Francis is a lumbering giant. It could batter Florida for days. With a storm this big, Max Mayfield is in no mood to take chances. He issues a warning for hundreds of miles of coastline. Mayfield has just triggered the biggest evacuation in Florida's history. 2.5 million people are ordered to flee the coast before Francis, the juggernaut, boxes them in. The storm is bearing down on the town of Fort Pierce in central Florida. The Causeway Mobile Home Park is right in its path. After what happened in Charlie, police have orders to make sure everyone gets out.
Oh, good. You're preparing to leave? Just checking up on you. All right, take care.
I did find it. It's not gushing out, but I can't tell if it's...
Right now, we're just going around checking with people to make sure they realize that it's mandatory evacuation. Hello?
Hi, I'm leaving.
You're leaving? Oh, good.
11:30.
Okay.
I'm out of here.
Good luck. Be
I
careful.
won't stay.
All right. Do you know anybody that says that they're going to be staying here?
No, nobody's gonna stay. Everybody knows better.
We've got 2 hours. They'll see we're getting out of here, you know what I mean?
Wanda McBride knows just how vulnerable trailer parks can be. She moved here after losing her first mobile home in another hurricane 12 years ago.
Oh, I lost everything. All my furniture, all my mementos, all my history. I had a suitcase with 3 changes of clothes, and that was it.
She's 72 and retired, like many of Florida's trailer park residents. Her daughter, Ginger, helps her move her belongings to safety.
Are they expecting this place to go down?
If it takes a direct hit, it's a very good possibility. Absolutely.
And you're helping her out?
Yeah, we're going to try to move everything. I got people coming so we can get everything out of here by 12 o'clock. So
Oh, good.
she doesn't lose her home a second time.
All right.
You know? No, the moral of the story is you don't live in a mobile home.
For many of the retirees here, a trailer home is all they can afford. If there's a direct hit, they'll lose everything. The storm is closing in fast. It's time to go.
Are we following you? I think so. All right.
At the National Hurricane Center, the latest calculations show that Hurricane Francis is neither strengthening nor changing course. That's the good news. The bad news is that, unlike Charlie, it's moving very slowly, which could make Francis even more dangerous. The winds will last longer. So will the rain. And that could pose a new threat: flooding. The slow-moving storm gives Josh Werman more time, but not much. The weather is closing in. Josh must guess where the eye will make landfall. If he's wrong, the mission will fail.
Looks like we're going to have constant precip starting.
The eye seems to be heading for Fort Pierce. This is where he'll make his stand. With the beaches closed, the Dopplers must deploy on the mainland, looking across the bay to the offshore islands. Josh will set up here, the other radar 4 miles south. The Dopplers are specially rigged to withstand big storms. They have hydraulic legs to brace them against the ferocious battering to come.
We're in a perfect position. I don't think we could really do much better than where we are. Basically wanted to kind of get hit by the north side of the eye wall roughly as it's coming on, and we're collecting nice data with the wind coming onshore, so we're feeling pretty good.
This is the opportunity Josh has been hoping for. To come face to face with the eye of a hurricane. Hurricane Francis comes ashore at Fort Pierce. Waves pound the marina. The wind strips sand from the beaches. At the Causeway Trailer Park, the mobile homes are beginning to fly apart.
way out.
Wanda McBride fears she'll lose her home to a hurricane a second time, with relatives further inland.
The barometer has come up just a little bit as well. A couple of millibars here. The winds are still of 105 miles per hour here.
There's bad news from the trailer park where Wanda lives.
Yeah, I think now as things are starting to get rough.
Homes are being wrecked. The whole place is flooded. Wanda may be losing her home again.
You know, you keep hoping it isn't going to happen, and you know it is. I'm too old to start again.
The eye of the hurricane has reached the coastline. With it come the fierce winds inside the eye wall. From separate locations on the mainland, the Dopplers are perfectly positioned. Twin radar beams reach toward the strongest sector of the storm to capture the wind field near the eye. On the radar screen, Josh watches the eye wall come ashore. There's no evidence of tornado activity inside it, just as he suspected. But there's something else instead. Zooming in more closely, Josh can see powerful streaks of gusting wind, picked out in red by the Dopplers. It's a phenomenon no one before him has seen.
Seeing these streaks for the first time was amazing. We were not expecting them at all. So at first I'm wondering what's going on, is the radar malfunctioning, what's happening? So we just collected them and watched them with amazement.
The streaks are passing right over the offshore islands, picked out in white by the radar, and tearing right through the Causeway Trailer Park. The Dopplers have exposed the true face of the storm. The sustained hurricane-force winds are powerful enough, but fierce streaks of more explosive energy are also revealed. Downbursts of wind that rip apart some structures and leave others intact. As the wind streaks collide with the Dopplers, Josh's equipment takes a beating.
Why does that happen? That seems bad.
Yes, it does. We're beginning to have progressive systems failure here.
Josh smells something burning.
It smells like paper. It's not electrical. Check around the back of the generator. Make sure there's nothing burning between the generator and the truck.
The generator is outside. They'll have to brave the storm to fix it.
The Dow 3's offline for a few minutes. We're all searching for the source of some smoke, but we can't find it.
With the winds at their height, Josh Worman's mission is suddenly in jeopardy. Josh Worman and his team have spent a rocky night on the Fort Pierce waterfront. The eye of the storm passed right over them.
Were you sagging like that the whole deployment?
Most of the instruments have survived the battering, but one truck is perched precariously over the water. The storm has undermined the bank beneath it.
I'd like to get my truck out of here.
Working inside, the crew had no idea how close they came to disaster. A few more inches, and they might have plunged into the bay.
Good news is we're down to our wheels. The wheels are still a few feet from the shore. The bad is, boy, we're hanging the rear of the truck over the edge.
Josh is impatient to take a closer look at the radar data he's gathered. Francis is just one storm, and the streaks may have been a fluke event. To confirm his discovery, he will need to see them again in another hurricane. Francis has passed through. Central Florida is flooded. Miraculously, only 2 people were killed when the storm hit the coast. This time, most people heeded the forecast and got out of the way. At the Fort Pierce Marina, smashed boats are piled up like driftwood.
I can't imagine what kind of forces were to do what happened here. This is incredible. This is probably a $7 or $8 or $9 million pile of junk.
The Causeway Trailer Park has been transformed into wreckage. One by one, residents are returning to see what's left.
Wow! Holy moly!
Oh boy. Just like Hurricane Charlie, Francis has singled out some homes and left others unscathed, right next door.
We made it.
Wow.
Ginger has come to see if her mother has been spared.
I'm glad that we got out her stuff because this looks pretty bad down here.
Amazingly, Wanda's home is one of those that made it.
You know what? It could have been a lot worse. It could have been a lot worse. Oh.
You did real good. Your home did good. You have your home. It's still there. Your house is still there. I didn't think it was gonna make it. It made it.
You, Tom. Jeb Bush. How are you?
Florida Governor Jeb Bush has come to congratulate the forecasters on getting Francis right. But this hurricane season is far from over. Another giant storm is on the way. This one's called Ivan. Almost as big as Francis. More powerful than Charlie. They're already calling it Ivan the Terrible. It rolls across the Caribbean, blowing at 165 miles per hour. Thousands of homes are destroyed. 66 people are dead. As it reaches the Gulf of Mexico, forecasters are betting Ivan will turn northward. The target this time, the Florida Panhandle and neighboring Alabama. This is some of the most vulnerable coastline in the United States because it's extremely low-lying. It could be overwhelmed by Ivan's biggest threat, a rising surge of storm-driven seas. Hurricane Ivan is bulldozing the Gulf into a mountain of water, known as storm surge. The Alabama Gulf Coast Zoo is directly in Ivan's path.
Good job, good catch, good catch.
There are 250 animals here, and they sense the approaching danger.
Oh, you coming down, you need love.
Patty Hall is the zoo's director.
All the animals seem to know that there was something going on, and I believe it's the barometric pressure that tells them that if they were in the wild, they would be fleeing the area that they would be occupying.
The zookeepers are taking no chances. Surge from the storm could put the whole place underwater. It must be evacuated, and quickly. Ivan will be here in 24 hours.
We're going to be going 150 miles an hour for the next 12 hours.
The petting zoo is first to go.
David, come on, man.
I like them guys. They got stuff there.
We got Hoofstock, the petting zoo, already loaded up. We have already started with our donkeys, our deer, and we're waiting to load up our guanacos. So that's about 20 animals, so we had 230 animals to go.
The big cats are another story. They'll need to be sedated with a strong dose of tranquilizer.
That's the girl. Oh, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay.
Hey, come in here with me.
Yeah, I think.
One, two, three, up. We got her.
Need some liquid tears?
Hey, look at that. She get you with that, boys. Hey, she's got 5. Look at that.
Lady the Lioness is far too agitated to be approached safely. She'll need to be sedated with a tranquilizer gun.
Let's see if I can turn it for you.
See, she's got her butt right in the corner. Sorry, man. Okay.
1, 2, 3.
This is the final draw of the straw. We're getting out of here, man. Let's go. Come on.
Only a few animals are left behind. Among them, Chucky the alligator, the zoo's mascot. They figure he can take care of himself. Josh Werman and his mobile Dopplers are on the move again. This time, they have a lot more ground to cover. Crossing from Florida into Alabama, Josh can see how much more dangerous this storm will be. The highest points on many of the islands here are just a few feet above sea level.
So, you know, conservatively, we got 8 here, right? We'd be getting out here just as the road was getting flooded, too.
With the sea rising fast, deploying on the islands could be fatal.
We went out there and decided we couldn't find a clear place. So a lot of the sites that we would like to go to are just unacceptable. They're just not safe.
From a nearby airfield, another team of scientists is racing to find out just how unsafe the islands will be when Ivan hits. They're developing a new type of hurricane forecasting. If lives are to be saved on the most low-lying coastlines, people need to be warned, not just where the hurricane will come ashore, but what it will do to the places where they live. The southeastern United States is flanked by chains of barrier islands, so called because they protect the mainland from stormy seas. The islands take the brunt of the storm surge and the erosion it causes. In the past 4 decades, the islands themselves have become heavily developed, with no barrier to protect them from the surge. Now, a big hurricane like Ivan could bring catastrophe. To gauge the threat, the research aircraft fly over the islands, taking a series of photographs from a bird's-eye perspective. At the U.S. Geological Survey in St. Petersburg, Florida, they line up the images into continuous photographic maps of the coastline and the buildings on it. The aircraft also use laser technology to measure the elevation of the ground and the structures below. An instrument called a laser altimeter fires thousands of laser beams a second to map the topography in 3 dimensions. In the lab, the 3D maps are superimposed on the photographs. The combined maps are assembled mile by mile into a continuous topographical picture of the coastline. They update these maps after each big storm to reveal the kind of erosion that typically happens. Beaches disappear right up to the buildings.
What we're looking at here is the potential vulnerability of the panhandle of Florida and the coast of Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana.
Using this history as a guide, they can look at the coast where a new hurricane is headed and code in red the areas likely to go underwater in a strong storm surge. This is the first season they're putting the new forecasts to use. They can model Hurricane Ivan as it moves in from the Gulf towards some of the lowest lying places on the coast. When the storm surge hits, it looks like disaster could be in store. Surge here are ominous.
Right here, I mean, basically Dauphin Island, they're right here. Cat 4 storm, they've got 10.3 feet of water there. And that means that a lot of Dauphin Island is going to be underwater. It's going to be a pretty wild ride on a Dauphin Island.
It's far too dangerous to deploy here. The eye of the storm is still miles offshore, yet the surge is already creeping over the beach. With nowhere high enough to escape the rising seas, Josh retreats inland. He pulls into an airfield on the mainland. The second Doppler will deploy a few miles east.
As the storm gets closer to us, if it's going just to our west, the way we hope, we'll start seeing essentially pure oceanic air racing across the Barrier Island, racing across this airport here. We're in very safe positions, but also very forward positions where we can get great data.
Despite the horror of the first two storms, not everyone is fleeing Hurricane Ivan. Those who are staying are boarding up to ride it out. Bryce Karcher and his family have laid in supplies, but are a little uneasy about staying.
Just kind of woke up early this morning. I was like, man, I think we better leave. You know, you start listening to the newscast. You know, they try to scare you, really. So I was thinking maybe we better leave, and then I said, nah, we're going to stay. So we decided to hunker down and stay, you know.
Night-night. Good beauty, yes.
The Karchers have two little girls.
Night-night. Night-night.
As the storm closes in, Bryce wonders if he's making a terrible mistake.
Fierce. I'm thinking to myself, what are we doing here? That it almost makes me have second thoughts now, but it's too late.
In his Doppler, Josh Worman watches Ivan's eye wall moving in.
But the eye is onshore. It has made landfall.
Once again, just as in Francis, he can isolate unmistakable streaks of ferocious wind.
The purple areas are where the wind's blowing very high, but right next to them there's these blue areas where it's not so strong. So the purple areas here might have winds of 100 miles an hour. Right next to it in the blue, it's only about 40 miles an hour.
Streaks of wind are tearing through the resort towns of Alabama and the Florida Panhandle, confirming Josh's discovery. But unlike Francis and Charlie before it, this hurricane conceals an even more deadly weapon. What Josh's Dopplers cannot see is the colossal storm surge. A battering ram of rising water. Hurricane Ivan has swept the shore overnight. On Dauphin Island the morning after, the wind dies down. The surf recedes to leave a scene of desolation. The storm surge has swept over the island, scouring away the sand. If Josh and his Dopplers had deployed here, they would almost certainly have been killed. Dozens of houses are demolished. Some have been swept completely from their pilings. They've been dumped by the surge 100 yards away. So much of the beach is gone that many homes are now perched 20 feet in the air. It's the same story along mile after mile of the coast. Walls are ripped from buildings by the wind. Homes are crushed. Whole neighborhoods are shredded. People's lives are changed forever.
This is the worst that's ever been, and we will never sit through another one. We sat in there, and the walls shook, and the doors blew, and you just knew that this could be the end, and you just had to leave it all in God's hands. And then when we came out at daylight and saw all of this, it was just overwhelming.
Faye Hubbard found her cousin's house next door crushed by a fallen tree. Her 7-year-old niece was buried in the wreckage.
We found her, we dug down to her, we located her and found a pulse, and she was not breathing. She was already dead.
Among those spared by the streaking winds is the Karcher home, though the girls are a little shaken. Outside in the street, Bryce Karcher discovers how lucky they've been.
Wow. I hope there wasn't anybody in that one. Doesn't even look like the same place.
It's a familiar pattern. Some homes are demolished, their neighbors spared.
Looks like we did good compared to some of these folks.
At one demolished house, the owner finds his furniture washed into the yard.
This kitchen cabinet.
Palm trees, uprooted by the surge, have smashed through the walls. In the debris, there's a sign carried here from a restaurant 5 miles away.
It came all the way from Pensacola Beach and is up behind my house, not on the water side, but back behind it.
Max Jordan has lived here for 46 years and sat out many earlier hurricanes.
This is the first hurricane that I've ever left the house. But something told me, get out.
What was it that told you get out?
Intuition, I guess.
Others chose to stay and paid the ultimate price. Bill Greenblatt's brother Joe had retired recently to his dream house on the mainland. The surge washed the house clean off its foundations. They found Joe's body half a mile away, one of 52 Americans killed by Ivan. His boat was deposited among the wreckage of another home.
Had to have happened awful fast.
And we knew he was gone when we saw this, of course.
Everything's blown away. The roof, the furniture, there's nothing here. It had to have been a tremendous force to have done this.
Brick walls were no protection. They simply collapsed. In the Alabama heat, things are getting desperate for the evacuated zoo animals. They've been taken inland to safety, but they must be kept cool in their stifling trailers.
Easy. Easy, babies.
The frantic zookeepers get as many as possible out into the breeze. But the big cats are in poor shape. They could die if they stay here much longer. 12 feet of water has flooded the Alabama Gulf Coast Zoo. In its wake, the entire compound is a sea of mud, littered with dead fish.
When we came back in the next day, we had sea bass and flounder hanging 10 and 11 feet up in trees. Every animal would have drowned. there's not a question in my mind that there would be anybody surviving. In the night houses, the watermark is on the ceiling, in which are all 10 and 11 feet tall. So they would not have been able to tread water, nor would they have lived through it.
Chucky the alligator, the zoo's mascot, is missing. The water washed him into the swamp. A team of gator hunters has been hired to find him. They search into the night for the missing gator.
Oh, here she comes.
Occasionally, they catch a glimpse of something moving in the darkness.
Right there, see?
A team from the U.S. Geological Survey in St. Petersburg has come to assess the damage. Team leader Abby Salinger has never seen anything like this.
I've been going to hurricanes for 20-25 years now, and I've never seen such extensive damage to large buildings before.
Resort hotels and apartment buildings have collapsed onto the beach.
Hard to believe that was a 5-story building.
Many of the collapsed buildings were built on top of sand dunes. The storm surge scoured away the sand from beneath them.
When the run-up and the waves actually go up under here, they go into an increasingly confined area and it explodes vertically. It puts tremendous pressures on the floor.
With their foundations undermined, the buildings came down. Thanks to the storm surge warning, the tourists left the beach hotels before the hurricane hit. But the financial cost will be enormous. Before it was over, the season from hell hurled a fourth hurricane across the Atlantic Ocean. Hurricane Jeanne hit Haiti, the poorest country in the Americas. More than 2,000 people died in mudslides and flooding. So many that bodies were disposed of in common graves. Jeanne regained strength in the Atlantic and rolled over Florida on the same path as Frances. This time, the entire Causeway Trailer Park was condemned to the bulldozers. Wanda McBride lost her home after all.
Want to grab her too?
The animals returned to the Alabama Gulf Coast Zoo without loss of life. They found Chucky the alligator and brought him home too. By the time the season ended, 122 Americans were dead and more than 3,000 people in the Caribbean. The United States had suffered $42 billion in damage, the most costly season in hurricane history. Florida learned some hard lessons about the folly of building so close to the ocean. Resort towns began repairing their beaches and rebuilding the miles of dunes washed away by Ivan. For the coastal geologists at the USGS, Ivan's impact showed just how futile these defenses are against the unstoppable force of a hurricane storm surge. They're working on a new generation of warning maps. What happened in Ivan will help them to depict the dangers more clearly and persuade more people to flee in the future. Josh Worman is on his way back to Colorado. He and his team have seen the true face of 2 Atlantic hurricanes and revealed the destructive power of the complex wind field concealed within the eye wall. Josh hopes that studying these hidden forces will lead to stricter building regulations in hurricane-prone states like Florida, and to new ideas to make homes more storm-proof. The 2004 season leaves him troubled about what lies in store.
Nature doesn't care. Nature's going to keep throwing hurricanes at these areas whether people are there or not. So if more people are in the path, more people are going to get impacted. We have not seen the worst that nature can dish out.